Good morning and welcome back to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust. We are the quasi-independent agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation. So back to the program today is someone who you may have seen, probably a little over a year ago when he was with the Department of Transportation and Public Works. But now, Carlos Cruz-Casas has gone on to the private sector with an outfit named TYLin City Solutions. Did I get that right, Carlos?
That's correct, yeah.
And Carlos, your role there now is as Vice President of Mobility Innovations?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm batting 1,000 so far.
You're batting 1,000 so far.
So Carlos, welcome back to the program.
Yeah. Thank you, Javier. Thrilled to be here. I believe, as you mentioned, right, this is my second time, right? I'm getting used to this kind of conversation, yeah. Maybe we can work towards, that 5-timer jacket, right?
Oh my God, I love that idea.
Right? So
yeah, we'll both be near retirement by the time we get there.
hopefully we'll make it work. So yes, like you mentioned, right, I joined TYLin in their City Solutions kind of side earlier this year as a Vice President of Mobility Innovation and the Sector Manager. That means the City Solutions Manager for the South, right?
Okay.
And
so let's start with TYLin. What is TYLin?
So TYLin is a strong, global engineering firm that deals with major projects and trying to address them with practical solutions. And when I talked about major projects in this engineering firm, is a company about 3,000 strong that has architecture and bridge design, infrastructure. Locally, have done great projects here with Miami International Airport, the South Side Terminal, some additional buildings, has involvement in the 395 projects, in the Port Zone, and so on, right? And it all started, right, and I learned as I going through the training, right? When you go through, it's TYLin, it's not TYLin, as unfortunately some people call it, because it started with a 2 engineer firm back in the 1950s, TYLin being one of them. So TY is the initial of his name. And they pioneered what we know today for bridges, right? So this type of structure that you see here back in 1950s were actually being pioneered by the TYLin organization. Okay. And it has grown now to be what it is today. Yeah.
Excellent. So you are now, I believe, over one of the verticals in TYLin, which is the City Solutions component. So talk to us about what that is and what you're doing as the lead over that vertical.
So basically, City Solutions is what was known as Sam Schwartz. It was a company based out of New York, about 200 strong, with now basically people around the nation. A company that is more on the advisory and planning component and some transit design, transit planning, consultancy, strong with traffic management, complete streets, safe streets for all and things like that. That company was now basically part of the TYLin family and came in as a vertical now called City Solutions. As part of that, I'm building a practice in terms of mobility innovation. And I think, sometimes people get confused innovation with technology, but it's not that, right? It's about how we address the problems we have in hand. And
technology is a big component, but
of course, has made our life easier, right? From collecting data, from analyzing data, from designing, it makes a lot of things easier. But ultimately, it's the essence of how we address a problem. So my role is twofold, right? Creating that practice of mobility innovation and moving things forward at the national level. But at the same time, being the manager for the South region. The South region includes Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, all the way to Texas.
Right. So you're practicing your y'alls?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Excellent. And I imagine the reason they hired you for this role is because this is a lot of what you've been doing throughout your career. So let's take a look back. You and I have known each other for many years. When I was at the DDA and you were at Kimley Horn, and we worked on, I believe, a bicycle pedestrian master plan for downtown together.
The Downtown Miami Bike Mobility Plan, yes.
And so let's start there, and then let's talk about your career growth through there into the city of Miami, and then ultimately at DTPW.
So basically started back then as a young engineer and trying to change, challenge.
Passionate, ambitious engineer. I remember you well.
You remember those days, right? It just looked the same, but without the gray hair, right? I'm an engineer by trade. I had some, growth as a planner and really kind of address kind of the urban environment. I moved to downtown Miami back then, and I saw the problems firsthand, right? And I remember when we were talking about your 2025 master plan.
Right.
This is 2025. Let's go back to that master plan at the DDA.
Seemed like so far away at the time, right?
You're like, I'm not going to be working by then. But yes, you are, right? So, and to me, it was fascinating to start seeing how we can take the technical elements of what is traffic engineering, what is transportation planning, what is movement of people into kind of real tactical work, right? So that bike ped mobility plan, I don't remember, it was every single page of the document was a project.
Yeah.
So not to get confused with fancy documents, practical solutions to be implemented. I was a consultant, like you mentioned, and I was doing these type of plans. And unfortunately, and this is something that we see a lot, sometimes these great plans become a nice book on the bookshelf, right?
Exactly.
And that's when I said, I need to jump in, right? Miami was on the way up, and my goal was, let me just put my hands in. I want to help shape this direction that Miami was going. So around 2012, I joined the city of Miami as the chief transportation manager, where we launched the Miami Trolley program from 2 routes, expanded all the way to 10 routes, the bike share program, the car-to-go car share programs, the person trip methodology for new development, the downtown regional impact studies. Yes. Remember all those things? So to me, it's really shaping how Miami has grown, right? If you look back at the aerials from 2009, 2010, all these buildings,
it's incredible. Even this at this point is a little outdated. Got to talk to Grant and Mike about updating their mural.
It's missing a big chunk over there, right? But everything's going on with
it's hard to keep up with.
I know.
It has just, I don't think we really appreciate how fast Miami, and in particular downtown, has grown in just the past decade. It's unrecognizable.
Yeah. So we were part of that, right? We were part of that. And I think to your point, at one point I had the charge to deal with the maintenance of traffic, MOTs. Everyone knows that, right? What happened is Brickell is about half a square mile. If you think about it, is that small. We have 40 cranes in Brickell. That means a lot of trucks coming in, a lot of road closures. And unfortunately, one time, a lack of coordination of 2 projects blocked one building and people couldn't get out. So every other week, we're sitting down with 40 developers and contractors, basically to come up with a collective maintenance of traffic. That's to the level. And I compare that again. I haven't seen that in this nation. Probably something that can replicate from the 1920s in New York, right? That type of development that happened in Miami over the last kind of 10 years, 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then you were working at the time for Alice Bravo, who I believe was the head of capital improvements, and then Alice, of course, ended up at DTPW, newly merged Public Works and Transit Department, where she was the director, and then I believe she brought you on board to the county, right?
Yeah, so Alice, she's definitely a force to be reckoned in the way that she approached the problems and the things that addresses the infrastructure. Not only she was the head of the CIP at the city, she became the assistant city manager.
That's right. I apologize, Alice.
Well, no, she's keeping track. So now you know. All right.
By the way, she'll be my next guest in a couple of weeks. So
there you go.
She'll be able to defend herself.
So ask her if she remember who's that kid that kept calling her to have lunch, so you can actually learn about her career back in 2007, 2008, right?
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, right? Sounds familiar. So yeah, you're correct. So that's when back then this idea that mobility doesn't understand boundaries. Mobility doesn't care about the mode, right? I think it is all about a matter of mobility, right? You see what I did there? Yeah. A matter of mobility. So,
like hey, I have that copyrighted. You can't steal it.
You did it the other way around. So, so at that point, that idea of bringing things together, right? And she invited me to come in and help grow the department. I joined as an assistant director of strategic planning, and it was more about how we talked about buses and traffic in one same sentence in a way that's just about moving people, right? Trying to address those things. I lasted about 9 years at the county, and I think I want to say that we've was different versions of the work that we've been able to do there, from bringing things together, from optimizing to going through the ups and downs of the economy and how the impacts had in the transportation element. Not to forget the health crisis that happened in this community,
right.
And how proactively we address some of those issues, emerging stronger than ever, right? One of the things that I look back in those 10 years is that we're able to do a lot of great things for the county, and from the transit point of view, from the bicycle infrastructure point of view, and other elements. we're seeing things that were not there 10 years ago.
So what are
Yeah.
2 or 3 of your top accomplishments while you were there? Some, projects or programs.
Yeah.
You talked about bike infrastructure. You can't really see it here, but you developed the downtown protected bike network, and that's something tangible
Yeah.
that I know wasn't easy to achieve because we've all been trying to do things like that forever, and there's so many obstacles, but you got it done.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's one of your top accomplishments. Certainly, I consider that. Talk about that and some of the others.
So yeah, back in 2017, we had some conversation about complete streets, right? And the idea that a street should be able to accommodate all motor transportation, right? So we started with a 6-month pilot project in South First Street. I remember that. It was a bus lane, a bike lane, and
Yeah,
cars.
the paint's still there.
The paint's still there. We were able to show that when you accommodate the right infrastructure, people use the service, right? Alice, for example, she always mentioned this, no one crosses the river if there's not a bridge in there. So why would we expect people to use this infrastructure if it's not appropriate for them?
Right.
So from them, doing one project doesn't cut it, right?
Yeah.
You need to build an infrastructure. We need to build a network. So we set a task to build a network of separated and protected bike lanes in downtown Miami. And it was very important to do so, right? And we started looking about how we create a north-south connection and an east-west connection down to Miami that be the core of that basically to grow, even connecting to the Venetian Causeway all the way to the beach. And we say separated and protected bike lanes because paint is not infrastructure. And we heard that many, many times over the years. By building the appropriate space and the separation devices that allow not only for protection, but one of the main challenges that downtown environment have for cycling community is people parking on those lanes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's blocking
delivery trucks, law enforcement, let's be honest. And then just everyday people.
That, not me.
Right.
Yeah. But yes, exactly. So by creating that delineation and putting infrastructure devices there, now they block the travel lane, which is far less obtrusive to that. And you start seeing a lot more people using bike lanes. I see in e-bikes and regular bikes and even scooters using the infrastructure where before they were on sidewalks.
Right.
So this is the best place.
And all without disrupting the traffic circulation patterns, right?
Not at all. Yeah. Not at all. Exactly.
There's this big fear.
It's a big fear, right? Again, we're accustomed to see this big piece of pavement that we want to drive our cars, but ultimately we can reduce the space and still move people efficiently, right? Speed is not necessarily equates capacity, right? And we've seen that in an environment like downtown Miami. Many other projects, right? I think, we've done artificial intelligence, we've done autonomous vehicles deployments. I think the most innovative project that I've done was the Better Bus Network. Yeah. And I tell you why it is not necessarily the creation of the network and the deployment of it, is how we got to build it, right? The fact that we said we're going to work with the transit advocacy group that represent the voice of the community. We're going to work with them.
Transit Alliance.
There you go, right? So it was really transformative and the first one in the nation that it was first community-led network redesign. That to me is innovation, right? So I firmly believe that you need to put yourself in the shoes of the people designing for. When I moved to downtown Miami and got rid of my car and lived without a car for 7 years. So, but I cannot be in the shoes of everyone, right? So if you don't have the capacity to do so, have someone that can elevate their voices, and that's Transit Alliance Miami. That network redesign, and I think maybe that's why it was so successful. Right now, I can tell you the ridership on that network increase. It is the best in the nation, right? Over the last 10, 15 years.
And that was without really adding routes, right? It was just making the existing network more efficient by increasing capacity or I should say service on popular routes, and just making changes that streamline the overall network and made, people get to their destinations faster, right? So
and you will hear this, right? So when you do a network redesign, you need to think about, do I want to cover and provide service for everyone, or do I want to actually build a network that is useful for people, right? And you have to find yourself somewhere in the middle. And that's what we did with the Better Bus Network. We did not add routes. We took routes away, right? Which is a conversation that we need to think about that, right? But to your point first, we put buses where buses belong. Having a frequency of 7.5 minutes from downtown Miami to the beach, that's unbeatable, right? And creating a network where a bus will come in every 15 minutes or less, all day, every day, That is what people really deserve for using transit.
Yeah.
However, the other aspect of the innovation is when you create a gap, you create a transit desert. And probably 10, 15 years ago, there was nobody could talk about transit desert. I think now, with the arrival of on-demand transit, we have a conversation that transit desert now does not become a mobility desert.
Yeah.
Right. So while we took buses away from the system and put it into a high-frequency corridor, introduce and expand the on-demand transit program with Metro Connect, and that definitely provided people access to opportunities and access to the network that they didn't have before.
That in many ways probably made more sense for them than your traditional fixed route bus, right? So it's about finding the right solution for the right problem and making that connection.
And it's one of the things that I love about, again, what I've done over the last 15 years. I hate to say that many years, but it's really kind of carry with you. And what I'm taking forward, because that's exactly what City Solutions is, right? Is about finding practical solutions to very complex problems. And let's not forget, transportation is a complex problem. Like it's just something that impacts everyone in our community, right? So it's just we don't have to create complex solutions for those problems. There's things we can actually implement that are viable, right? And I think what's fascinating about that and really leveraging technology to actually provide accessible transit to folks, right? And instead of being in an area that you're waiting for a bus for 60 minutes or even longer sometimes, now you have a smaller vehicle that can actually get closer to you and be able to provide that on demand, right?
Yeah. So I know we said earlier, innovation isn't necessarily just technology, but technology obviously is a big part of it. And something that probably better than anyone in Miami-Dade County, right, is all these evolving technologies in the mobility and transportation space. You've made it a point of learning, of going to places, of bringing some of those conferences and some of that expertise here through Commotion, which is coming up, for instance. So let's talk about technology. What do you see coming down and becoming part of our mobility landscape over the next 5 to 10 years? Some of the new technologies that we're going to start actually seeing out in the street. We've been talking about it for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Automated vehicles, eVTOL, et cetera. So what do you think are the actual practical applications of those new technologies in kind of the near term?
Yeah, no, excellent, right? And this is something that Miami-Dade County has been a leader in this conversation and trying to bring that technology towards something that can implement. You mentioned autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles for another name for it. They can present a great opportunity, not for buses and rail. I think that's too far down the road. And there's people that have automated transit vehicles, right?
Look, Metro Mover was automated before automated was cool, right?
Exactly. Yes, there you go. There you go. So there's currently self-driving vehicles within the Metro Connect program, right? There's provided by the company called Miami Mobility, and it's an interesting approach to start thinking about how that can happen, right? The way that I see it is if you kind of remove that, kind of person, if you will, from a short trip type of service that go through, you potentially can reduce the cost of operations. Right. But at the same time, you can actually, what I'd like to say, you can turn that driver's seat and put it on a swivel, which we're not allowed to use in here, but put it on a swivel and face backwards and create these kind of
added capacity,
right? Or even in moments of special events, and Miami-Dade County has a lot of special events, right? Can be an ambassador for the city, can be someone that can tell about what's going on and what the best way to move around, right? Or even, we talked about making transit more accessible. Can that be a way that we can actually have companionship or services on transit to support people that need transit a little bit more help? So autonomous vehicles for sure is happening already. And you already see companies like Waymo coming down to Miami doing their robotaxi, what they call, right? And I think, to me, the way that it is technology is not a mode of transportation itself, it's how you apply. So you mentioned applications for that. So I definitely see kind of, like a Uber-like technology or services to be there. And that can be used to help transit. In what sense is, even in the Metro Connect program, right? Something very innovative that Miami-Dade County has done is transit goes first. When you request a Metro Connect vehicle, the first thing that it looks is if your trip can be better served with a bus or a rail. And if that is, they say, hey man, just walk to the bus stop, take the bus, and you get to your destination faster, and it's going to cost you the 25. If that is not available, then they send you the vehicle that will be shared with other riders. However, if your trip is a trip that will impact the ability for the Metro Connect to be efficient, meaning it's a trip that take the vehicle too far out and comes back empty and don't allow for the system to be efficient, now have introduced a partnership to offload that trip to a non-dedicated vehicle, like an Uber on a Lyft, things like that. That is to me very interesting because all of a sudden you can maximize the utilization of the dedicated fleet, make it very efficient. And those other trips, basically, you can offload to that, and you can offload that to a Waymo, to a SUX, to an autonomous vehicle, reducing the cost of operation, not impacting the efficiency of the fleet that you have, and ultimately training people to choose transit first. And I think that to me is a really strong approach on how we use technology towards meeting the needs of our community, aligning with the goals. Yeah.
Okay. Are you in the eVTOL space at all? So it's for we spoke to the airport director at our last show about it a little bit, but that's electric vertical takeoff and landing, right?
Correct.
So drones carrying people. Yeah. Which is an exciting new technology as well. Is that something that you've been a part of? Or
I've been a part of. I think there's a few things that we need to consider as we go through. It's coming, it's part there. Now, what is the right use for that? Is it moving people? Is it moving medical devices? Is it moving
goods and services?
Goods and services, right? There's many opportunities to do so. I think there's a lot more to be explored there. I'm more interested in how we create policies as cities that can help make sure that those services are aligned with the goals and objectives of the city, and that they don't become detrimental to the experience, right? So again, having a parade of drones around can be fun. Again, do you see that Empire State Building drone show that happened?
No,
for the first time, they basically replicated one of the most iconic moments in the film industry, which is like King Kong, climbing the Empire State. So it was a light show with drones. It looks like King Kong just climbing the Empire State. So check it out. Yeah. Well, so that can be fun. However, do we need that as a city, right? And I think it's something that we need to kind of be very careful for. However, I think it's phenomenal technology, changing the way we think about how we move people and ultimately shrink the size of our cities, right?
And let's switch now to something that gets discussed frequently in Miami, because you can see it here. We're surrounded by water, and in many other places similarly situated to us, they have ferries. They have waterborne transportation, water taxis, water buses, you name it. So there's always been a lot of interest and discussion about how we might implement that here. There are obstacles here, the Manatee Protection Zone and whatnot, but perhaps technology can be used, to overcome some of those obstacles. What do you think about waterborne transportation as a mobility solution in Miami?
I think is something that needs to be explored and actually pursue with high emphasis. You're correct, right? I think definitely there's aspects that we need to kind of reduce the potential opportunities for those. I did try this at the City of Miami. I remember working with the City of Miami Police and getting on their boats and trying the routes in and out, even for our.
That was just an excuse for you to get out on the water.
That too, of course. If you're in Miami, you need to get on a boat.
That's our Central Park. Biscayne Bay is our Central Park. Yeah, absolutely.
If we even worked with Uber during Art Basel to do Uber Boat. I don't remember that.
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, that was like, I don't know how long ago. But so, yes, there's something that I think needs to be explored more. And I'm seeing already some new technologies coming from the Europe and the Netherlands area, if you will, for electric vessels with a little more shallow and less impact towards the water. Right?
Some of them even kind of like hover. They're not hovercraft per se, but they kind of fly over the water.
So the hydrofoils are interesting. I think that's more for kind of longer distances and going
Bahamas
faster.
And whatnot.
Yeah, because ultimately that's a blade under the water. That's how it goes, right? And that can have impacts to our.
That's true. Yeah.
But we don't have to move fast. I think that I want to get to the point that a city, while it's a very dynamic environment and the city and the people move fast, transportation can also take a little bit of time, right? And we need to kind of understand that as we move forward. I think the biggest challenge that we have is how we connect to the bay. right? There's been a lot of conversation about connection between the, Miami Beach to downtown, but then you get there and what happens?
Right.
Right.
On both ends.
On both ends.
Yeah.
On both ends. I think as first, let's solve that. After that, the water transportation can become very efficient. Like you can look at Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yeah.
And they have a very successful kind of water
it's wonderful.
transit program.
It's probably more tourism oriented than commuting, to be honest. But it's people love it.
But that's how you start, right? That's how you start, right? So I think there's a lot more to do from Oliver to downtown Miami, from the south to here, and particularly this bridge, right? And how we can actually create a better connection towards the side. And what that does is basically perhaps free up space for us to be able to do a bus-only lane on the bridge, right? On better bicycle facilities. Yeah.
Are you going to be involved in the smart plan at all moving forward with TYLin? I mean, obviously, I know there's a cooling off period as a former county employee, but is the smart plan something that the firm is involved in?
We do have several verticals within the TYLin, and yes, that's definitely something that rail and transit and the development of corridor is something that this company is very strong to do, whether it's a smart program in some of the projects here in the south or what's happening in South Florida, again, Broward County and further to the north. It is something that we are very interested because we have the expertise. We've done this throughout the nation and beyond, and we have the capacity to actually deliver on those things.
Yeah. Well, good.
So, and that's some of the things that I kind of like about this move, right? So a few things. I was thinking about preparing for this conversation. What I like about what happened, right? And I'm like, the first thing is the people that are in the TYLin kind of city solutions team, right? I have yet to meet all of them. We're just about 200 in city solutions, about 3,000 strong in TYLin. But so far, people that I met are like-minded individuals, basically grounded in one mission to connect people, places, and ideas, which to me is very interesting. And that's what you and I have done over the years. And even this conversation is connecting people, places, and ideas. So it's fascinating to see that in an organization dedicated towards building on that. The second thing that I like is I get to travel a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's fun. You get to learn from other cities and clients throughout the nation. Amazing work happening in New York, in Chicago, Salt Lake City, Charlotte area, the Atlanta Beltline is something else. It's really, to me, building the future of urban environments. But third and never last, one of the great things that I've seen, at least in the last 3 months that I've joined this organization, is I get to travel and I get to talk to people and I get to hear from them about the great work that has been happening in Miami-Dade County.
Good. That's
a strong validation to me. That the fact that sometimes we don't see it in here.
We're very hard on ourselves.
We're very hard on ourselves, completely, right? And I understand we need to be aiming to do better.
Yeah.
We need to do better in everything. You have to be a better person. You have to be a better father, a better neighbor, a better community, a better city. It doesn't hurt to take a moment to step back and say, look at all we have accomplished.
Right.
And Miami-Dade County has done a lot of great things over the last 10 years. Yeah.
And you've been a big part of it, Carlos. So thank you for your efforts in the public sector at DTPW, at the City of Miami.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing all the great work that you're going to be doing now at TYLin.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have some opportunities to work together.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to my velvet jacket, right? So I have to go.
Three more to go.
Three more to go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe next time I'll sit over there and I ask you questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
I may not answer them, but you could ask away. Well, Carlos, thank you. That's all the time we have here. Unless there's, one last minute point that you want to make that we didn't get to. We do have a minute.
So no, but basically, again, I'm thrilled to see what we have accomplished. I'm very grateful again for you and the work that you have done, not only at the DDA, Coral Gables, and the CITT, right? Kind of bringing things together, and ultimately having this conversation is a great value, right? And I see, already great things in our community, and that you have been able to highlight. Not too long ago, you had Mayor Fernandez sitting here talking about his vision for South Miami, and we want to see more like that because that's how we learn and how we move things forward.
Well, thanks. And so I'll have more mayors on. So thank you for that point. Right. Folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. You can find us here every other Thursday, now from 9:30 to 10:30. So we kind of got pushed back a half hour. Have some great guests coming up on the horizon. We have Alice Bravo Carlos's former boss and mentor, and she's on her own now, but she'll be representing the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. And she'll be having a great conversation with myself and Javier Bustamante, who is an assistant director at the Department of Transportation and Public Works. And we're going to be talking about transit-oriented developments, TODs, where transportation meets land use and development. It'll be a great conversation. So please join us for that in a couple of weeks. If you're interested in learning more about us at the CITT, please visit our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. We are actively recruiting trust members if you want to be part of the conversation and the solutions. And of course, we're always recruiting for CITT ambassadors. You can learn more about those opportunities on our website. See you in a couple of weeks.